hello again. This is Kingdom Essentials, Empowerment for the Kingdom Age, and it's session 22. And today we're going to talk about the exuberant, empowering, radical love of the Father. With everything that we have covered, it is just good for you to know that all this, everything that we've been exploring and taking a journey into depths of the kingdom and this great inheritance has everything to do with an indescribable love of the Father that he has for us. And we'll forever be having deeper revelation of this. It is really, truly indescribable and utterly amazing. I believe this will be the last session of this series of just Kingdom Essentials, and I want you to know that we've just scratched the surface, really. But everything that we've covered is absolutely from the heart of God. It is of the love of the Father, and it is beyond words. And that's why we need the spirit of wisdom and revelation to even comprehend the beginning of his love for us. When we talk about all those things that he made us kings and priests, that he's brought us into his Son and seated us in heavenly places with him. And we've come to Mount Zion, the heavenly Jerusalem, right into the throne room of God because of the blood of the Lamb, the obedience of Jesus, and that our Father would send his Son to do such a thing is amazing. And then made us joint heirs. And we're in him who's had two royal lineages, one of the Son of David, and then that of the Son of God, the Alpha and Omega, which brings the authority in all things from heaven and earth right into him. And we've been exploring even what that means. And then gives us this tremendous inheritance of the saints, as we keep saying in Daniel chapter 7 verse 27, and even Jesus' words in Luke 12:32, to fear not, for it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. We talked about the restoration of the tabernacle of David, the position, the royal position that we have as intercessors with him, in him. It is truly amazing. And all of this because of the radical love of the Father. And we can all quote John 3:16, but we'll forever be learning about what this love is. And I hope you're sensing the love of the Father and just enveloping you right now, even at this moment. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And everything from covenant, believing on, everything we've been talking about is really contained in this. For God so loved the world, he loves us. The Father truly loves us. He has characteristics in his exuberant joy and love over us that may be hard for us to believe, but he is very demonstrative in the actual description of his love. And when I say demonstrative, I mean he demonstrates it. And so instead of me trying to explain it, I'm going to let the words of the prophet Zephaniah in 3:17, where when we take these words apart of what they mean, when reading in the Hebrew what these words actually mean, we begin to see a characteristic of the Father and his great joy for us that is truly radical, absolutely radical. And so let's read that. Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 17 says, the Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over thee with joy. He will rest in his love. He will joy over thee with singing. Again, the Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over thee with joy. He will rest in his love. He will joy over thee with singing. And I want you to know that that word joy is mentioned twice, but they're actually two different words when looking into the Hebrew, into the the original text. So what I want to do is we go through these words like we have been with a few passages, understand what those words are in their original meaning, and then let's read it again with those definitions and let the character of the Father's love be demonstrated to you by his prophet's own words. So when we look at the first part of this verse, the Lord your God in the midst of you. And when we look at that word midst, it's in the Hebrews, in the Strong's Concordance Hebrew, it's H7130. That word is kereb, which means nearest in the midst, nearest to the center of both your inner parts, but also your physical surroundings. So he's in the midst of your inner parts, but also your physical surroundings. In and out, through and through. So the Lord in the midst of us is mighty. And that word for mighty is the word H1368. And if I pronounce it right, Gibor, which means an intensively powerful as a warrior. An intense, powerful warrior. That's what that word mighty means. So the Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. And that word save in Hebrew is the word yasha, which is H3467, 3467. And that word literally means to deliver, to give victory, to save you from moral troubles, avenging all, and preserving. So we read up to that point, the Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty, he will save. And then it says, he will rejoice over thee with joy. And that word rejoice is in the Strong's H7797. That's the word sus, S-U-S. And it means he will exult with a great display of joy to the point of trembling. Yes, he is so joyful and will rejoice with such joy, that he actually begins to shake and tremble. And it says here, so he will rejoice over thee with joy. So he's going to exult with a great display of joy, shaking and trembling over you with great joy. It sounds so redundant, but the words aren't redundant. They're different words. He will rejoice, yes, to the point of trembling over you with great, and that word for joy is simcha. It's H8057 in the Strongs, and it means with blissful glee of great gladness and pleasure. It's actually blissful. In other words, there is no, it's just beyond himself. So he's going to rejoice to the point of trembling with joy, with blissful glee and great gladness and pleasure. Wow. He will rest in his love. And that word now, rest, he will rest, is the word charash, which is H2790. And that word charash means he's going to engrave, like when you engrave on a piece of wood or on a sculpture, he's going to engrave his love upon you. That's what that word rest means. He will engrave, actually mark you with his love, engrave it upon you. And he will joy over you with singing. Now when we look at that last sentence, it sounds like it's another word for joy, but that word for joy is not quite the same as the first one. The first one was blissful, full of absolute gladness and pleasure, blissfully, like beyond himself. But this word, where he will joy over you with singing, is the word giel. We've talked about this before when it came to the halal and other expressions of praise. The giel is in the Strong's H1523, And what that means, Giel means, he's going to rejoice by spinning around, dancing as one under the influence of a violent emotion. Wow. So he's going to, in his joy, he's dancing over you. He's spinning around as one under the influence of a violent emotion. Well, think about this great joy, this description. Imagine when a Hebrew person reads this, that reads what the Jewish people were reading. This is what they would understand. That he's Giel, he's spinning around us. He's dancing as under the influence of a violent emotion with singing. And that word for singing, it's not really, there's a part of that word that does mean singing really loud, but actually that word is renah, which is the Hebrews H7440. Search it out. And that means a creaking, shrilling sound. Like, really, just letting out shouts of joy with proclamations of triumph. Wow. So we're looking at that last part of that one verse. He will joy over thee with singing. No wonder there wasn't more needed to be written, because those words have these meanings in Hebrew. These words are very descriptive of what he's like. And he is exuberant and radical in his love for you. I wanted to exhort you on that from his very word, the type of love he has, and to the extent by sending his son and then imparting such an inheritance. It's no wonder he has a great affection, a great love, radical. And in his love, he's empowered us. Amazing. So when we put all these words together, and read what the prophet was saying, and again, just like he did before, we replace the word with the actual meaning of what that word is, we get quite the picture of a description of this radical love of the Father that he has for you. Only he could express such exuberant joy and love for us. So let me read that. This is Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 17, with the words that we just went through, replaced with the actual definitions. You ready? Here we go. The Lord your God is the one who is nearest to the center of your inner parts and physical surroundings. He is intensely powerful as a warrior. He will deliver you, give you victory, save you from moral troubles, preserve you, and restore all that has been taken from you. He will exult over you with great displays of joy, even to the point of trembling, full with blissful glee of great gladness and pleasure. He will engrave upon you his love. He will rejoice over you by spinning around, dancing as one under the influence of a violent emotion, while shouting and screaming shouts of joy with proclamations of triumph. That's our Father. That's how much he loves you. Paints a different picture. Let me read that again. This love that demonstrates from his Son on Calvary to the great inheritance, to the love to restore us to our original state, one in him, basically, restoring that in the earth and our inheritance, and then his demonstrations of love for you. The character of our Father is quite radical. And let me read it again. Just let it sink into your spirit, Because this is the word of the Lord, and these are what these words mean that were spoken by the prophet Zephaniah in chapter 3, verse 17. The Lord your God is the one who's nearest to the center of your inner parts and physical surroundings. He is intensively powerful as a warrior. He will deliver you, give you victory, save you from moral troubles, preserve you, and restore all that has been taken from you. He will exult over you with great displays of joy, even to the point of trembling, full with blissful glee of great gladness and pleasure. He will engrave upon you his love. He will rejoice over you by spinning around, dancing as one that is under the influence of a violent emotion, while shouting and screaming shouts of joy with proclamations of triumph. It's worth one more time. And Lord, I just thank you for all that's been shared. And Father, let this word be more than a benediction to a series. Let it be your engraved stamp of love on those whose eyes are being opened, who are seeking first your kingdom and your ways, who have now having an encounter with the King of Glory brought into his very presence in the holiest place, the Holy of Holies. I thank you for your love. Remember, the Lord your God is the one who's nearest to the center of your inner parts and physical surroundings. He is intensively powerful as a warrior. He will deliver you, give you victory, save you from moral troubles, preserve you, and restore all that has been taken from you. He will exult over you with great displays of joy, even to the point of trembling, full with blissful glee of great gladness and pleasure. He will engrave upon you his love. He will rejoice over you by spinning around, dancing as one under the influence of a violent emotion, while shouting and screaming shouts of joy with proclamations of triumph. And last thing, as I read this, I'm reading in the sense that he will. Remember, he is the one who was, is, and is to come. He is doing this over you right now. And I'm going to read it one more time, but in present tense, because this is exactly his love being demonstrated now. And I want you to know that as much love as I have for you, it's a tiny drop in all the oceans of the world compared to what he has for you. You are highly favored. And remember, the Lord your God is the one who is nearest to the center of your inner parts and physical surroundings. He is intensively powerful as a warrior. He delivers you. He gives you victory. He saves you from moral troubles. He preserves you and restores all, and is restoring all that has been taken from you. He exults over you with great displays of joy, even to the point that he's trembling, full with blissful glee of great gladness and pleasure. He has engraved his love upon you. He rejoices over you by spinning around and dancing as one that's under the influence of a violent emotion, as he shouts and screams with proclamations of triumph and shouts of joy. He loves you. I love you. All of us around here love you. And wow, what an honor to be in the presence with you, royalty of God. And remember, there is nothing greater than what he is for us, and nothing greater than this wonderful thing that he's given us and tells us not to fear, for it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Blessings.